to Real Talk with Tina and Ann. I am Tina.
And I am Anne. Tina, we always start this podcast with, our normal introduction. And I'm always left with the words real talk. And that's what we are really doing here. And this episode especially has really hit me. I know that we have an incredible podcast, but I also listen to other podcasts, and there's one, and I was out mowing, okay, the other day, and I just thought to myself, I'm going to just listen to a no nonsense podcast, something that doesn't even matter, something that's not going to make me think at all. And it did the exact opposite of that for me. So I don't know if anybody that listens to our podcast is into Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or the Bravo franchise as much as I am. But there is a show that Jeff Lewis has. If anybody knows who Jeff Lewis is, he does the flipping houses and renovations for the stars and things like that. And I was just listening to this, what I thought was going to be like, just a mowing experience, which turned out to be a very learning experience for me. And as I'm listening to it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to write that down. I have to write that down. And so I came back in and had to listen to the whole thing again. And I just took all kinds of notes. He had a guest on, and her name is Dr. Donna Dannenfelser, if I'm saying that right. And apparently she's really well known because I Googled her. And the entire time I was listening, she just had so many nuggets of wisdom. Now, Dr. Donna has written books, and like A Counselor to the Stars, I instantly got her book and I started reading it. And I just wanted to soak in all this wisdom that she had. She had a show called Necessary Roughness that was an actual series after her life as a counselor to the New York Jets. And she decided she was going to be that, even though she knew nothing about football at the time. Absolutely nothing. She told herself that she was going to be the counselor to them, and she ended up doing it. She just made it happen. Have you ever just wanted something so badly that you just believed it was going to happen?
Yes, and I believe there is power in positive thinking, manifestation, affirmations, all of those things. And I've done this before too when I've wanted, this kind of sounds funny, but when I've wanted to see animals on my hikes or adventures, I feel like I think so hard about it, like I'm going to, or maybe I just stick around long enough to where I'm able to. I don't know what it is, but I do that. Or if I set my mind to accomplishing something, uh, actually like landing my first real radio gig, I wanted the specific job that someone else had, and I wanted those hours, and I worked my butt off to be able to get that, and just told myself and believed in myself that I was going to do it. So yeah, I think there is something to it for sure.
I really do believe in it. I've done that too. This is kind of funny because the first time that I saw this man, he came into a game at a basketball game that I was at. I was sitting clear crossed in the stands, and here comes, and all these people were walking in. I mean, tons and tons of people were walking into this game at college, and my friend was sitting next to me, and I said, I'm going to marry that guy. Well, I did. And it's so crazy because I didn't know him. I had never met him. There was nothing, but there was just something inside of me that knew that that was going to happen.
It's so funny, and I never knew that part. Well, what might be funnier or more odd, if you want to, is that oh, something similar happened with me. When I first met my husband, we were in college, and the very first words out of my mouth when we had met at a mutual friend's apartment was, oh, "Can I have your babies?" And it was because he had curly hair, because I have curly hair. And
Right.
it just went downhill from there. And I was like, oh, you spend the next 10 minutes trying to explain yourself. And then finally I'm like, by the way, my name is Tina. So that just cracked me up. But here we are, three kids and 15 years later married. I know some people called me psycho at the time, and I'm like, no, 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 I was psychic. There is a difference.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's funny that he just didn't run out the door as soon as you said that to him.
No, he didn't. He even answered that. He left me his phone number. He even answered my call the
Oh
next
my
day.
gosh. Oh, you
Hey,
called him
when you know, you
okay.
know. I did. I
You
did.
do.
I knew.
And I do believe that when you know, you know. I mean, that's really well said. I've done that with jobs that I've had. I knew that I was going to get a swim coaching job. I've done that with my book, my master's degree, and lots of different jobs that I've had. I mean, I believe in manifesting, and I know that we talked about that before, but I do.
A lot of hard work and manifestation, I think, goes a really long way.
She said that you have to do life by yourself, but you can't do it alone. I mean, isn't that good?
Yeah, so yeah, it definitely is. And I think that fits me pretty well. I interpret it as you have to work hard for what you want and manifest what you want while also having a village to share life with.
Right. I mean, it made me think of how we come into this world alone and how we go out alone. That kind of quote that
Mm,
I've heard before. But all the things in between, we're on our path, but people are joining us and people help us and we help them along the way. But we really are kind of doing this by ourselves at the same time. It's both.
yeah, yeah, it is.
So the other part to that was we are exactly where we are supposed to be in life. So why do we focus on the people who do not show up and think that there's something wrong with us because that they didn't show up instead of focusing on the people that do and the things that do? I mean, I don't know why we do that.
I don't have the big answer for that either, but I know it's so hard. I
Yeah.
think it's a lifelong struggle on and off in different seasons, different chapters of life for many people, including myself. I think we all want to feel loved and seen and valued. And sometimes what we want, we can't have for whatever reason. So we want it more.
Hmm.
Sometimes I think it just plain hurts to be rejected. And there is though such joy and power in focusing on what we do have. And I'm learning to take my own advice on this because, people's actions show you where their hearts are or aren't. And you have to be cautious of people whose actions don't match their words. It kind of boils down to knowing your worth and your value. And, we only have this limited amount of energy and time. It's not something that's just in abundance
Yeah.
and you really have to sit down and think who is worth that and then go toward them, gravitate toward them, as long as it's mutual.
Yeah, I really like that. And I have spent not these years of my life, but in the past, I've spent too much time thinking about the people that weren't around instead of the people that were. And that can really keep us from being able to appreciate what we have. But I have spent too much time thinking that there was something wrong with me because of those people. I really did believe I did something when I probably really didn't. And I think that sometimes we make it too much about us when it really isn't about us at all.
That's been a struggle for me too. Something I've wanted the answer to is how do you not take things so personally when they
Right.
feel personal? And I've really been trying to focus on that and what you just said, it's
Yeah.
not always us that is to blame, but then you go back, then you could go back to, well, they say it takes two. I mean, there's just this back and forth, battle in your mind sometimes. But what it boils down to, I think, is really knowing who you are and trusting that.
Yeah, going back to this podcast, it was just so profound. One of my favorite things that they talked about, well, there was two. First, it was a train analogy, which we'll talk about later, but the one thing that really hit me, that really resonated with me, was this play analogy. And my friend Sade Young, who we talked about this in the podcast, she mentioned this, and I thought it was so cool. But Dr. Donna talked about it in a lot more detail. And so picture yourself, picture your life as a play. And we're the ones casting the people. We cast the villains and the friends. And I was thinking family, but a lot of people we don't cast because they're in our family already, but we are casting who we choose to be in our life or not. And they get a script. And at the end of the play, which is our death, Dr. Donna said that they take their mask off and they ask if they played their part the way they were supposed to. This was the part that got me the most because she said they did their job, even if they hurt us, because that was the part that they were cast for. And there was a lesson in all those things that they did along the way. So I'll tell you, I mean, this made me look at this with a completely different perspective, and it gave me more responsibility in the parts that people played in my life.
I think this is a tough one. They did their job even if they hurt us because that was what we cast them to do. There's a lot of truth, I'm sure, to that. But if you go back to family, you don't get to pick your family. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't certainly think that you get to pick what maybe some have done wrong to you. I guess what I'm saying is I can't fully get on board with that because I don't always think we had a part. I mean, if your mom is your mom, your dad is your dad,
Right.
you did not pick them.
What I thought about this was the older you get, the more responsibility you have to the people that you cast. Also, if you've had trauma in your life, or the more healing that you've had along the way, the more ability that you've had to be able to make those choices in who is in your life and who isn't. Because even when I was in my 20s, I really believed that I did not have the ability to make the right choices at that time in my life because of the trauma that I had had before that. So I think it comes with time and maturity and healing. And through the years, as you grow, I think you become more and more responsible for who you cast. And we are more responsible at that point. And we are the director of our play when we think about it. And do we want to be the director of our play, or do we want somebody else to be the director of our play?
Yeah, it really is a good question. Certainly gives a lot to think about. And I guess one of the most recent things that happened about a year ago, I had an old friend reach out to me and apologize for ending our friendship 18 years ago.
Oh my.
And it was so nice to get that apology. I hadn't thought much of it. I mean, I really
Mm.
hadn't. I try to look at it as I treasured the chapter that we had together back in high school and in college. And then life took its turn. And yeah, she was pretty crummy. I'm not gonna lie about it. Blamed me for ending a friendship, but it was really her. So getting that apology was really nice. And funny story about it is just 2 weeks ago, I ended up running into her for the very first time in person since college at a
Okay.
baseball game at a tournament. And it was fine. She told me of so many fun memories together when we were younger. And she'd actually asked if we could get together and do coffee. And I said, no, thank you. But I just don't have the time. It was nothing for what happened before, but it kind of is speaking to what you say. I don't know who she is now. I'm sure changed, more wonderful, different in a lot of ways, but you only have a certain amount of time and energy. It's not in the cards right now. So I appreciate the apology, but I'm not going to be able to squeeze in trying to mend or restart a new friendship. So you're right. In that case, I had the opportunity and I did, and I felt very confident and comfortable, and she understood, saying, thank you. That's really kind, but you know what? This just isn't the season for it.
So you decided not to cast her in your life right now. That's really interesting. That was an actual choice. It makes it such a visual when I'm looking at my life as a play
Right, right.
and
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
making the
big one.
decision. I'm making the decision to say no, because there is somebody in my life right now that I am purposefully keeping at a distance. And I think it is the right decision for myself and my family. And even if it hurts, I think that sometimes we just have to do that. This was interesting. My son said to me, and he's only 7 years old, he said to me, Mama, if you want people to be who they want to be when they're an adult, you have to let them be who they want to be as a kid. And I thought that that was
So
so
good.
brilliant, from the mouths of babes.
Yes.
And I looked back at his words and I think because, I was so controlled as a kid that I became that person who was so controlled as a young adult. I allowed others to dictate my play, my life, the characters in my play, who played those parts. But honestly, if I would have learned a lot younger that I was the one casting those people and what their roles were, and that I had the ability to direct their behaviors or kick them out of my play, I mean, I wish I could have learned that younger.
That's so good. I also think that's hard to do when you're younger because there's a lot more pressure, I think, that you feel, either to fit in or to maybe not hurt someone's feelings. I feel like the older you get, you're like, listen, these are
Yeah.
my people, and it's not that I can't be nice, and it's not that we can't chit chat, but I can't let you into that inner circle.
And I oftentimes think of that bullseye, when I was in college and they had that bullseye where the people are the
Mhm.
closest to you are in the inner circle and they go out further and further and further. And there's nothing wrong with having people move further out. Another nugget that Dr. Donna said was when a relationship ends, do you come out of it wounded or wiser? And if you continue to cry over what happened or you continue to live in it, how long are you going to decide to be wounded? I mean, that was like, oh, wow. I mean, I spent so many freaking years living as a wounded bird. Like, woe is me, and I can't find the ability to be strong and just be that punching bag or not be that punching bag, that person or that bullseye on my back. And, you know, it was a choice that I did have a choice in it when I want to go back to what you said, Tina. There was choice in it, but I also think that there wasn't choice in it because it depended on how healthy I was at the time. And at that time, I just wasn't healthy at all. I guess it is when you realize that you have a choice. I think that that's, I think that that's so profound.
So, yes, I think realizing that you have a say, you have a choice. And I also, though, think that there's a time for both to be wounded and come out wiser.
Okay.
I don't think that you can only come out wiser. I mean, if you're ending, let's just say you're ending, we'll say you're ending a friendship or a serious relationship. I mean, yeah, it's going to hurt because you've
Mhm.
invested all of this time and energy and you love this other person, but for whatever reason, it's not going to work out. Yeah, you're going to feel wounded, or if someone does something to you, it's just one-sided. Yeah, you're going to feel wounded, but then once your heart is able to, because I think your heart has to be where it has to be for a certain amount of time. I'm not saying you stay wounded your whole life. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that you give yourself time to feel wounded and then you give yourself time to heal and learn from it. So for example, when certain things have happened in my life, I have, as I've grown older and wiser, I have started just asking myself, instead of like, praying that the pain will go away or anything like that, or even asking why. I mean, it's pointless to me because we rarely know. I mean, yeah, I still have some why questions, but I don't know, maybe I tuck them away. But I ask, what am I supposed to learn from this? And my hope is that I learn what I'm supposed to. So I don't know if I've shared this nugget before, half of it, yes. But when we had a stillborn baby in 2018, I was never angry, with God or anything like that. I was really like, I was super sad for about 3 weeks. And then I realized I really had to pick myself up because the longer I stayed, the harder it would be to get out. But I also wouldn't trade what I learned through that awful, painful experience. So that's just kind of what we're talking about here. Was I wounded? Yeah. But did I also come out wiser? Yes, I did. And so you wouldn't want the first thing to happen again to cause the wound, yet you don't want to give up what you learned and gained in wisdom because of it.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that there are times and seasons for each of those. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being that wounded person for a period of time. Now, my mistake was that I lived in it for way too long. And I don't even know if it was a choice, honestly. And I've asked myself that. I mean, I think it depends on the trauma, the healing that you've been able to do, or re-victimization along the way. I mean, if it's happened multiple times and you get to the point where you feel like you can't even go in any direction because you just feel like every direction you go in, there's pain. So, I mean, even going through when there's something like that, I think is really difficult. There's been times where I've been mad at myself for staying in it for as long as I did. But then, now that I've come out of it further, sometimes I think that we're in it for longer because I think that there's still things that we have to learn, you know? Like
Yeah,
we're
I
not
can,
ready to get to the wise part yet.
right. I think there's a time and place for all of it. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Getting to the train part, because this all ties in with what we're talking about with the play. This too was just so profound to me. I loved the visual of, okay, she starts out with 5 cars.
So, yeah, there are 5 cars. And first, you have to go through all the cars to see where you want to live.
I look back at all the stages of my life, of all the places that I've lived. And interestingly, my daughter and I are filling out a journal right now together. It's a mother-daughter journal. She has it on one side and I have it on the other. And one of the questions was, how many times have you moved? And so we counted hers and we counted mine, which was way more than I realized. And each place I thought about, and it gave me a feeling of where I was in that time of my life. And I could tell you, if I had to walk through all the cars, I would like the one that I'm in right now, just right now, walking through each of the houses that I walked through to get where I am. I'm good. I like where I am right now.
I love that. I do. I like where I am right now too. I mean, it's bittersweet at times because time, just like a train, can go really fast, and time seems to be just at warp speed right now. So that's just the only struggle I'm having right now is I really want to hold on to where my kids are and where life, is and just have a pause button, but we don't get that. So I know that Dr. Donna described each car, and the very last one is the caboose, and that is where you are just looking back on your past. But what I wanted to add here was not about Dr. Donna, but I just went and saw the movie If recently.
Okay.
And it's a children's movie, if you will, not like a 3-year-old movie, but maybe middle school age. The little girl in it is 12. And this kind of put what we were talking about in perspective. First, I thought it was a great movie. I love Ryan Reynolds. I think he's really great. And it just it was just such a sweet movie, but there was a line in it, and I'm going to grab my phone because I wrote it down to make sure that I'm reading it correctly. So this is from the movie If. Nothing you love can ever be forgotten. Memories live on forever. And
Mm.
that stopped me in my tracks. I started bawling my eyes out and got me thinking about this last train car. And I truly believe that life goes so fast for all of us. And if we don't slow down and stop and look back quite often, we're going to forget some of the things that we want to remember.
Mm.
And so as I walk this journey with my mom, I keep thinking about that. It's so hard to see someone you love suffering so much with early onset Alzheimer's, and we are probably in the late stage of it right now. Um, that I can barely remember what she was like before this disease just ravaged us. So pictures are one way to kind of stop and take a look, and literally just taking time, quiet time somewhere, wherever that is, I think is so important. And I'm going to start doing that because just every day just keeps going by, going by, going by. And before you know it, the weeks add up to months, add up to years, and you can't remember some of the things that you want to. And so That's why when we talked about this caboose and the train ride, and then I saw that movie, it just felt like it all tied back together. I don't think necessarily that just waiting until we're at that caboose is the only time to look back at our past. I'm not saying you have to live there and,
Okay.
put yourself back through it over and over again. I just feel like it might be good in certain situations to look at where you came from or look at how you grew or go back and watch the movies that you made of your kids or look at the photos that just bring you back to a time that was happy, different, just something that you might have forgot about that you did or do you know what I mean? That's kind of where my mind went when I was thinking about this train scenario.
It's hard for me to look at the past, even the good memories, because it just brings a loss to me. I mean, I laugh and I love it, and I have so much fun being able to look at my kids as little kids and things like that, but it also makes me realize, how much older they are and where this is heading. So,
Yeah. No, it's true. But you want to talk about another great train scenario was in the series This Is Us. Well, when I say great,
right.
I mean it's what I'm living right now. So if I get a little bit teared up about it, that's why if it took me months to be able to watch the final season of This Is Us because I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I knew that Rebecca had a memory issue, and I knew that would have progressed in that. And I knew that she was going to pass away. And they so heartbreakingly, beautifully took her on a train ride. And it went through all of those cars and all of those seasons. And she
Mm.
got to the caboose, and you knew that this was the end. This is how it was going to be. And that was such just a beautiful illustration of life and what we're talking about, and all of the hard things with all of the beauty mixed in. And then when that time is here, it really was a beautiful, beautiful way to show such pain and beauty all at the same time. It just illustrated it perfectly.
Well, I really am sorry that you're going through this with your mom. I mean, your mom is such a beautiful person, and I hate what Alzheimer's does. And she's also so young. So, I mean, I am just so sorry. I'm glad though that something like that train episode helped you kind of maybe process some of what's going on.
It did. It certainly did.
The next car that Dr. Donna talked about was the baggage car. And, this is where we kind of visit our issues, our abandonment issues, our trauma, or whatever baggage that we're carrying around. And this is where we can kind of decide what or when or how we're ready to leave those issues behind. Like if we're going to pick some of them up and continue to take them with us into the next cars. And, I think that we do. Like we talked about earlier, I think that there's seasons. I think that we visit certain cars at certain times in our lives. I think that we revisit. I think sometimes we pick up a certain baggage and we carry it with us, and sometimes in some time we're ready to let that baggage go. And I think that some of it has to do with the healing and what we need and when we don't need it anymore.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And it's so funny to me why, and I've done this too, why will I continually pick the baggage up? If you think of
Yeah,
the hiking experience, the more you carry, the harder it is. Let it go. And
right.
I'm still learning how to do that. I know it's hard. It's a lot easier said than done, but it really is healthy and beneficial when you do it.
I kicked myself so many times because I picked something back up again. I
Mhm.
mean, I have a friend right now that it's just so sad. And my heart goes out to her, and my phone is open to her anytime. She wants to contact me again. She, we were the best of friends for years and years, and we kind of knew each other out there, and she's back out again doing some choices that she shouldn't be doing, unfortunately, and she accidentally called me. Didn't mean to call me. She meant to call another Ann, but she got me. And I think it was a God thing. And she just started talking about her relapse and how she's just a mess. And then she just said, ugh, and then she hung up. I keep texting her, I love you. I love you. I'm here. And I think that there's just in not going to that much of an extreme, but I think that there's times in our life that we just go back and we revisit certain things, and maybe there was something in her life that just wasn't resolved. I'm not really sure why she went back out to that point in her life, and we kick ourselves, and it doesn't do any good to really do that, I don't think.
Oh, it's, an addiction is such a constant battle every day, much like I feel like my anxiety is too. I just go back to we only have so much energy and time, and it's so important to just make the healthiest choices as soon as you can, and start building those healthy habits. One of the next cars is the passenger car that's on the train that we've been talking about. And this is where we get rid of people we don't want on our trip anymore with us, where we tell them to get off our train, we give them a ticket to go somewhere else, but they cannot get back on with us. And I would call this boundaries. I would say this is where the boundaries come in.
Mhm.
And, I'd also say just because someone's family doesn't mean that they just have a free pass to make life miserable or do things that they shouldn't be doing to you, your children, anybody. So, it unfortunately can be someone that's in your family who would have to fall under this car, but kind of like the friend illustration I was sharing with you, I was just very open and honest and nice about it and just said, no, thank you for, wanting to get back on my train, but my train is full and it's going to keep on moving.
Yeah, I've had people very close to me, and like you just said, even family members. And I create distance, and hopefully the distance is all you need, and you don't need the words to be able to have to say no at this time. But yeah, I mean, I think it's healthy to create those boundaries. And then the other side of that is that we can let people on that we want to be on our train at that time. So I think that that's pretty cool too. I
Yeah,
mean,
that we get
it's
to
just
decide because we matter too. And it's not about hurting people's
right.
feelings. It's just you grow, you change, you learn, you do different. You know who you want and don't want in your life to be in
Mhm.
that inner circle or on that
Right.
train right there with you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No,
You can still love people from a distance. That's possible.
yes. And some at a bigger distance than others.
Yes, I agree.
The next part is the engine room, and this is where Dr. Donna describes a room where you're getting filled up. She gave examples, but for me, those things would be like music, art, drawing, photography, writing, some TV time, God, definitely time, and listening to my kids laugh, rest, which I hardly ever get.
Right.
Decorating my house. I mean, there's just so many things that fill me instead of deplete me.
Yeah, for me, it would be being, seeing sunrises and sunsets, being by the water, hikes, anything outside, camping, being with my family, just seeing my kids be kind to each other, or
Mm,
seeing them do
yeah.
things without being asked, things like that. But yes, taking pictures, all of those things, some of
Mm.
those things, I just sit here and like, oh, I would long for a nap or I would long to be able to read a book. My stepmom asked me recently, when was the last time you sat down and, read like a book for pleasure? And I was like, 2010, maybe. So it's
Not a children's book.
yeah, right. And not a self-help book. And I was like, honestly, I don't even own any books here that aren't children's or like self-help, if you will, that would fall in like a self-help category. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I really probably 2010.
Well, being the kind of person that likes nonfiction books, it's hard for me to read fiction.
Mm,
I do love children's books. I mean, I gravitate to them. Even if I didn't have kids, I think that I would pick some up and read them because they have so many lessons in them. I have literally gotten episodes out of children's books. So, I mean, yeah. And I love reading with my kids and I love them reading to me.
yeah.
So, I mean, and I guess I should have said friends because friends are very filling too. I
That's
love
funny.
spending time with my friends.
I didn't say that either. I don't I don't get a whole lot of socializing time, just maybe a little bit here and there at the ball field if I'm not at the playground watching the game from my phone.
Well, I love my
It's the
time that I
season.
get to spend with you. And I
Oh,
think
yes.
there is never a time, whether we run into each other at Target like we did the other day, or whether we purposefully get together, or we're zombies together, or whatever, honestly, I always love our conversations.
Yes. I think we could just talk and talk and talk about nothing and
Yeah.
everything all at the same time.
Yeah. And so maybe we should start a podcast. I don't know.
Honestly, I've thought about just my randomness. If you just knew all the random things throughout the day that went through my head, like if we just did a podcast and we sat here and just, okay, your turn, my turn, your turn, you know what I mean? It went back and forth. You'd be like, what in the world? You'd understand why I exhaust my own self.
Well, it's not boring. You're not boring.
No,
And I'm not
no.
either. I crack myself up all the time. And if I said the things I think,
I know. Oh, I know. And I always say to myself, my husband would never have to, I mean, I never worry about him being a cheater ever, but also because I have enough personality for 10 people, so there's no need for him. I mean, I could be anything he ever could need all in one,
you are. Yes.
for better or worse. I had
Yeah.
someone, so
Oh,
funny story that maybe ties into this or not. I was at my son's end of year field trip. And then a couple days later, I was at his baseball game. I got stung by a bee twice
mm,
in 1 week, different places, but I got
okay.
stung in both of those places. And when we were at the ball field, one of the other moms said, "Oh, it's probably because you're so sweet. You need maybe a little more vinegar." And my good friend who knows me well was shaking her head like this.
Mm.
Mm-mm, she needs no more vinegar. And I looked at her, I said, "You do mean that in the most loving, kind way, right?" She said, "Absolutely, but you don't need any more of it." I said, "Well, I will just take it and run."
Oh my gosh, that's great.
As as the Brad Paisley song goes, this is what my husband said: "I am sunshine mixed with a little hurricane." That is absolutely the perfect description for me, and I'm
Well,
totally okay with it.
that's why you love Hawaii because, you know,
Yeah,
it's like the tropical weather, with some of the bad rainy weather all the time there, but also the rainbows all the time.
that's right. That's so good. I love it. And it's okay. And bottom line of this whole story is I feel like be comfortable being you. And I think the older you get,
Mm.
the more comfortable that you feel, but be comfortable being you and be even more comfortable with people who don't like you. It's okay. We're not here to please everyone. You can still be kind though and not like someone. I'm not saying, sabotage them or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's okay. You are you, and that's a good thing. Unless you're bad, then that's not so good. But you know what I'm getting at, right? Be comfortable being you in your own skin. And
Unless you're bad, then you need to change.
yeah, then maybe you need to change and get some help until you're a good version of you, the best version. But we're always a work in
Like,
progress, aren't we?
yes. And I never
Well,
know what you're going to say. So,
I
yes,
know. Well, maybe you can help us get back on track. You like what I did there? Get back in
track.
the
I
car.
get it. Huh. Train. Yes, that was good. So the last car on the track, is actually the first car, I guess, because it's the conductor car where you are the driver of the train and you are the one in control of your destiny and where you end up. She also said that there are people in our lives that will try to pull us all the way back to the caboose. And she said that if we end up back there, that it's actually our responsibility. And I do agree with that to a certain point, to a big point. But I also think that there are times to revisit, as we kind of said earlier, just like grieving. There are stages. And I think I look at each of these cars as kind of like a stage in my life or different stages in my life.
And you go in and out of them.
Right. Another thing that she said, which I really loved, and now I'm always going to look at this differently, I think, where we go to a table, we go to a relationship, we sit down with somebody, and it's like, what are all the ghosts are you bringing to that conversation? Who's all sitting? And it's just you and somebody else, but who are all the ghosts that you're bringing with you? And I could just picture like that good and bad, devil angel thing on your shoulders, but it was just like, here's a ghost, and that's my anxieties, and here's my insecurities, and here's this, and here's this, and I could just picture all the me's at the table with somebody else.
Yeah, that is definitely something to think about. Gosh, yeah, another episode for sure, because now it's just got the wheels spinning in my mind about, oh my goodness, yeah, what are we bringing to the table? But the only thing I can think about that scenario is we all know we come with baggage. I think what's real hard about knowing who to have on your train and not to is we all have our things, but how do we know maybe when it's time to let someone go, or you know what I mean? And I think we all get there in a different time, or some takes longer than others. I that's just that's something really good to think about, because I feel like it's almost as though we all come to the table. So let's say when you and I first came to the table, we didn't know any of the ghosts we were bringing, but we had journalism in common. We had this trial in common. And you start to just chat with someone and you just really like their personality. So I guess I'm saying, at what point, I wonder, do any of the ghosts play any part in, wow, when things split and when things come together? I don't know, you just kind of got
Right.
me thinking about it.
That's interesting because I think that our insecurities and our anxieties brought us together.
Well, there you go.
I think that they did because we were, covering this really huge case. And I think that both of us were a little afraid of all that was in front of us and all that was expected of us at the same time. And
Yeah.
so we kind of just, I think that we both felt each other's insecurities and anxieties, and that made us closer. And we talked each other through that entire situation and helped
But we
each other
didn't feel
through.
alone. Nobody wants to feel alone. Yeah,
Right.
I think you're right. But going into it, we didn't know that we were going to meet each other and have all of those feelings. So
Right.
that's a really interesting topic. What ghosts do we bring to the table? And at what point are you like, whoa, those ghosts are too much? It's fun to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is an entire episode. I think we could break that down into segments for sure.
I think you're right. There was one last thing that Dr. Donna talked about, and we can relate to it. It is narcissistic people. Boy, you don't know any of those people, do you?
Only a handful, maybe.
Well, this is what Dr. Donna said. You should shove them off that train because we will never win.
Unfortunately, narcissists are so convincing, and they can even be so convincing that they can mess with you to the point where you're even questioning your own truth. She actually called this narcissistic abuse, but I mean, it's to keep it clean, it's crazy making. It's
Mhm.
just crazy making because you really start questioning yourself because they really believe what they're saying.
Yeah, it's real hard to be friends with or have any sort of relationship, whether it's someone in your family, friends, whatever it is, with someone who's narcissistic. That takes a toll, because I also feel like narcissistic sometimes can tie into gaslighting, where
Uh-huh.
people say that it was you who did this, but it was really them that did it, and then you're like, wait, what? You're so confused by the end of it.
One of the things I have now I do, a narcissist radar, and it's a
Oh,
feeling.
where do you get one of those?
I do. And, you know, whenever I am around, especially this one person, and they are a narcissist, my entire being feels it. I
Mm.
mean, the rejection I feel inside of myself towards this person is, it's just unbelievable. And I also, whenever I'm around somebody like that, I am completely drained. I mean, like I can't even go another second. And I need to stop. I need to remove myself right away.
Yeah, I've experienced that too. And not even just with narcissistic people, but just people who make you feel uncomfortable or make you feel dumb or, like make you feel a certain way and you have to be
Sure.
around them. That is really hard as well. And it does take a toll on our bodies and our mental capacity, our mental strength, if you will. And so I've been really working really hard lately on if I'm just not feeling it, then just I need again grace and space to just not do it.
Mm.
Dinner making has been just a nightmare lately. But then my dad just gave me an air fryer yesterday, and
Ooh, I love those.
it just it's starting to change everything already. I just the time, you just I'm like, darn it, I forgot to thaw this or I forgot to do this. And then next thing you know, we're all eating something crummy for dinner again because mom couldn't make something. But the truth is, I'm just in a little bit of a funk right now. And I think it's end of school year stuff and just life. And it can just be hard. And so I'm not overwhelming myself. And so when you get around people who make you feel that way, sometimes you just got to be like, you know what? Not today, not this week, or not this month, and take that time off because you really do matter too. And again, we do not have this unlimited amount of energy.
No, we don't. And it kind of, when I was thinking about the different people that hop on and I don't want them on, and I actually pictured myself running into a different car and hiding under a seat
Yeah.
because I don't
Well,
want them to see me or even know that I'm there.
oh, yes. Do you ever go in a store and you see someone that you're like, oh, I do not want to stop and talk. I will go the other way. I will turn. I will do whatever it takes to not be seen as much as, oh, grab a clerk or, like hide or, oh, I dropped something, just quickly disappear, if you will, like literally have done that. Because sometimes it's
Me
just
too.
easier to do that than it is to have to be like, what? I don't want to talk to you today. Can you keep
I
on moving? Great to see you, even though
I
it's
can
not.
remember the first time we hadn't seen each other in a really long time, and I really wasn't wanting to have that first conversation in Sam's Club, and I saw them. And I was like, oh crap, this is not the place I want to do this. So I went, and they must have obviously seen me because I saw them looking for me as I was trying to keep moving around. And I would like look and I'd see them like this, and I'm like, oh crap, they even know I'm here. So and then I safely got out without that conversation. But I mean,
That's
it's
fun.
funny how we do those types of things. And then we did end up having a conversation later when it was more appropriate and it was great.
It
And
was just in a
and we're
different store.
amazing friends, but I just didn't want to do it right then in the middle of Sam's Club. So it was kind of funny how we do that. But I could picture myself like running into another car, getting underneath the seat and saying, no, I don't want to see you.
But again, because we don't have always that time and energy to deal with it. Like some things can stay in that, what's the car, the passenger, what's the car that you
The
decided they
passenger
get off
car.
at? Yes. And so some people just need to know their role and they just need to stay put.
And
Stop trying to get back on.
if they're on the car or on the train, any of those things or people that you don't want there, the whole train's going to go off the track.
That's so true. It's so true.
So there is a quote that goes along with this whole entire thing, and I know that it's a little long, but do you want to read it, Tina?
I will. It's on trains and their passengers. And John says, life is like a train ride. The passengers on the train are seemingly going to the same destination as you, but based on their belief in you or their belief that the train will get them to their desired destination, they will stay on the ride or they will get off somewhere during the trip. People can and will get off at any stop. Just know that where people get off is more of a reflection on them than it is on you. There will be a few people in your life who will make the whole trip with you, who believe in you, accept that you are human and that they make mistakes, humans, that is, and mistakes will be made along the way. Together, no matter what, you will get to your desired destination. Be very grateful for these people. They are rare. When you find one, don't let them go, ever. Be blessed for the ones who get on at the worst stops when no one else is there. Remember those people. They are special. Always hold them dear to your heart. Be very weary of people sneaking on at certain stops when things are going well and acting like they've been there the whole ride, for they
Mhm.
will be the first to depart. There will be ones who secretly try to get off the ride, and there will be those who very publicly jump off. Don't pay any heed to the defectors. Pay heed to the passengers who are still on the trip. They are the important ones. If someone tries to get back on the train, don't be angry and hold a grudge. Let them. Just see where they are around the next hard turn. If they're buckled in, accept them. If they are pulling the handrail alarm again, then let them off the train freely and waste no space in your head for them again, ever. There will also be times when the train moves slowly, almost at a crawl's pace. Appreciate that you can take in the view. There will be times when the train is going so fast that everything is a blur. Enjoy the sense of speed in your life. It is exhilarating but unsustainable. There will also be a chance that the train derails. If that happens, it will hurt a lot for a long time. But there will be people who appear out of nowhere to get you back on track. Those will be the people who matter most in your life. Love them forever, for you can never repay these people. The thing is, even if you could repay them, they wouldn't accept it anyway. Just pay it forward. Eventually, your train will get to its final stop, and you will need to deboard. At that time, you will realize that life is about the journey and the destination. Know and have faith that at the end of your ride, your train will have the right passengers on board, and all the passengers that were on board at one time or another were there for a distinct purpose.
That was Enjoy the Ride by John Passaro. That, I could visualize every single thing that you were saying.
That's something that I have to see on paper to digest. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, it was so good. I know I forget all of that. But going back and being like, yes, yes, I know people, I know every single person that he talked about. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? I think in your
me
life, if you
too.
look back.
I could picture like my friend Becky at a certain time in my life when I got derailed, how she was like standing in the tracks, or John, how he was standing there when I got derailed, or this friend or whatever, I mean, I could actually picture people and speeds. I hadn't really thought about the speed before, but then,
I really like that one too. Right now, I think you and I are probably in a very similar season of speed with,
yes.
kids in school and especially end of year, I would say this month in particular for me personally. And so
Mhm.
I'm just trying to hang on and enjoy the ride and do what I can and let go of what I can't because it's just going so fast.
Well, it's that saying that says the days are long, but how does it go?
The days are long, but the years are short. And there is no truer statement ever, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I just can't believe how fast time goes. And somebody said recently, this is another one. I am sorry. I watch some really crazy shows sometimes, but it's really good. I mean, the show Hacks on HBO Max. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Not
And
heard of or seen it.
it's, and I don't know that actress's name, so I mean, I'm gonna fail there, but it's an older lady and a younger lady, and how they've come together in their lives together as comedians and how they're helping each other basically through life. But I was watching it last night, and the older lady it was just so profound what she was saying about being at the end of her life
Mhm.
and how she was talking to the younger girl. And she was saying things like, everything is just new, and even a breakup, or even, you just have your whole future in front of you, even if you are having a breakup or something like that. But with her, she has to do everything now because she doesn't have the time anymore. And
Mhm.
just her perspective at the end to somebody who's still very young, it was so good. I mean, there's a lot of it's just funny for funny's sake, because it's a comedy, but it was so profound. And it makes me think of this because she said, I feel the same that she did when she was younger. She doesn't even know that she's older until she looks in the mirror.
Mhm. That's truly, that's how I feel. I've thought about that a little bit over the last couple of weeks just for myself. And I think going back to the train example in the caboose is when you get to that caboose, make sure that you've done all the things that you wanted to do, accomplish your purpose. And for some of us, maybe the purpose is someone that we raise, you know, maybe you're a conduit to something, or to the world. You connect people to things, or things to people, and whatever it is. I think it's so important that we don't think we have more time than we do, I guess, is kind of
Hmm.
the bottom line I'm getting at, is we only have so much time, so really prioritize who and what matters most, and then go out and do it.
And I'm also watching myself in that train going to different forks in the track, or, deciding to go this way and not this way. And I've looked at different ones like that in my past and thought that I failed here or I failed there. And when I look back at the play scenario, it makes me realize that they weren't failures, or this was just the script that I wrote for myself. And these were the people's scripts that they had. This was how the play played out. This was a life that I dealt myself in some respects. And, when you get to the end, I mean, I don't think looking at the failures and just being able to look at it differently, being able to look at it as, this was a life and this is how I led my life, and not thinking it's a failure, but all the positives about it instead.
There are lessons to be learned. I tell my kids we don't have bad days, we have bad moments, because you can always
Yeah, I
choose to
like that.
start new and start over. And I think it's important that we do. And I also think it is important that we love ourselves. And if you don't love yourself, maybe you need to just kind of look at why. Is it truly that you do need to make some changes, or have you let these other voices kind of take over and make you forget who you really are? We don't need all kinds of people, how part of that, quote talked about, don't give it any more space in your head. Don't give
Hmm.
people the time of day who don't give it to you. If they're not in your inner circle, no offense, but it doesn't matter what their opinion is of you. I mean, I have a neighbor who I believe thinks differently of me than who I am, because I set a boundary with her. And, it's like, well, it's fine. I really actually, for probably the very first time in my life, I don't care what she thinks of me. I just don't, because I know who I am. And
Hmm.
that she's just upset because I've had to set a boundary, but that's what healthy people do. It's not that I don't want to talk. I just don't want to try to be close like we were at one point. And so whatever she thinks of me is fine. And I'm comfortable knowing who I am. I don't need that to rest on someone else.
Well, the train ride is short,
It
really.
is.
It really is. And,
Spend it with those you love the most,
it
really.
is, yes. That's so true, Tina.
Mhm.
So unfortunately true. And and with some, I block the number
Mhm.
because I don't want their messages getting through. Because
Right,
I don't want it to get inside me.
right.
And I don't want their definitions of me inside me. I don't need that. It's Life is too short.
It certainly is. Well, soak in the moments that are good and learn from the bad ones. I mean, we can learn from all of them. And in the end, you get to decide who you spend your time with and what you spend your time on. Thank you for joining us this week on Real Talk with Tina and Ann. We'll see you next week.